Practically everyone was over in the late 90s. Yep, even this bellend. It is wild to look back on Raw or SmackDown tapings now and see fans going bonkers for Gangrel versus Al Snow. But it happened. Sadly, something else happened too. WWF careers had to come to an end, and many did during ye olde Attitude days. None of the examples given on this list are ultra memorable high notes either. In fact, you definitely won't remember how workers like Gangrel, the Public Enemy, kissed goodbye to an era filled with excess, raunch, cash, and ass. I'm Adam Wilborn from What Culture, and these are 10 precise moments when Attitude Era careers ended. Number 10, Gangrel. Look away now, Andy Murray. The vampire's blood-drinking gimmick became less of an ongoing concern in 1999, but he was totally de-emphasized throughout the year 2000. In fact, Old Ganger's last appearance on one of the major shows was a 90-second loss to Taz on the 17th of February episode of SmackDown. After that job, Gangrel dropped to the C-Show schedule and became a jacked/metal regular. His final televised bout was a WWF European title crack versus William Regal on the 11th of November 2000. That was a wrap on the one-time Brood leader. Gangrel only wrestled one more match, a house show win over Midian, more on him later, several days later, before leaving the promotion in 2001. He's worked almost everywhere else since that near 3-year run as WWE's bloodbath-loving creature came to an end. He's even got his own sauce. Banging and banging. Number 9, Luna Vershon. Gangrel was involved in the end of Luna Vershon's run too. Together, the wacky pair teamed up to take on Prince Albert, yes, a walking penis piercing, and Jacqueline on the 10th of February 2000 episode of SmackDown. The whole exercise lasted less than a minute. Luna actually scored the pin over Jackie, but then got dumped outside the ring during some post-match shenanigans, and that was that. According to Jim Ross on Grilling JR, Vershon wasn't always the easiest to deal with behind the scenes. She was struggling with a myriad of personal problems and didn't see eye to eye with some of the women in the locker room. The WWF released Luna shortly after this mixed tag. Vershon, who was actually married to Gangrel for a spell, blatantly wasn't the future of women's wrestling in 2000. Things might have been different had Vinnie Mac been less, how can I put this, enamored with scantily clad divas at the time. But that was the priority. Number 8, Ahmed Johnson. There was a time when Vince McMahon told guys like Bruce Pritchard and JR that he could see Ahmed Johnson as WWF champ someday. The injury-prone wrecking machine did have natural charisma by the truckload, and he was popular with the fans, but it was just never going to happen. The boss had given up on Ahmed by mid-97, and things got even worse for Johnson as calendars trickled towards the new year. In February 1998, the muscle-bound Pet Project worked his final match at In Your House, No Way Out of Texas. His parting shot was hugging Ken Shamrock after a win over the Nation, and then performing a few dance moves for the crowd before leaving the ring. That, as it turned out, would be the last time Ahmed worked on a WWF card. Johnson left to take care of his sister, who was in poor health, and later claimed that racism behind the scenes didn't sit well with him either. Number 7, the Public Enemy. To say they weren't welcomed by the roster would be a gross understatement. Johnny Grunge and Rocco Rock were literally beaten up by the APA on Saturday Night Heat, then ignored before losing to the Hardy Boys on Z-List programming like Shotgun. Their last match for the Federation was taped on the 30th of March. By the time their clash with the Hardys aired, Public Enemy were already lining up indie dates and in talks with WCW about another run there. They'd never recapture their ECW magic outside Paul Heyman's cult-like organization. Number 6, Bart Gun. Right, imagine WWE scheduled an MMA-style tournament today, told the workers to fight for real, and then punished the dude who won it because he wasn't the one they thought would win, Shane McMahon. That's exactly what the then WWF did with the disastrous Brawl for All concept in 1998. Bart Gun hammered everyone in his path, but that wasn't supposed to happen. So after months of sitting on the sidelines twiddling his thumbs, Badass Bart was brought back as a sacrificial lamb for Tough Man Boxing boxer Butterbean at WrestleMania 15. He got his arse handed to him by Mr. Bean, not that one, and it was a miserable end for Gun's once promising career. Seeing refs and officials check on Bart as he struggles to stay conscious on the biggest stage is rather depressing now, especially when one knows that he was being punished for his own success. Gun did make some cameo dates after this, but nothing worth writing home about. Number 5, Midian. Then again, it could be worse. At least Bart wasn't bollock naked for the majority of his final few months in the Feds. Former devil worshipper Midian was repackaged as an exhibitionist towards the end of his WWF career. Naked Midian popped the roster, watching backstage on monitors, by invading matches in his birthday suit. And it was always going to be a short-lived thing designed to make people laugh. Midian's last hurrah on screen came during Chris Jericho vs. Kane at Armageddon 2000. The pair brawled backstage and stumbled upon Midian and Grandmaster Sexay for some reason chatting by some vending machines. Kane bumped into Midian, then he and Jericho battered the lower carder with a few punches. The company tried to rejig Midian again after this. He worked a handful of dark matches under his old Tex Slazenger gimmick, but then got let go just a few weeks later. Number 4. Vader. Losing to Edge would not be considered a bad thing in 2022. Back in late 1998, though, yeah, staring at the lights for the Canadian hopeful wasn't exactly a promising sign for Vader. He did the job for Edge on the 11th of October 1998 episode of Sunday Night Heat and then left the promotion. Vader did make a series of one-off appearances in 2005, 2012, and 2016, but they were gimmicky cameos that were never going to lead to anything more substantial. He'd been sliding down the totem pole for a solid year or so before that match with Edge. Weight gain problems had blighted Vader's reputation behind the scenes, and he'd been neutered by that 1996 feud with Shawn Michaels anyway. The one-time mega heel in Japan and WCW never came close to top billing after that, and most fans won't recall his final match at all. Number 3, Ken Shamrock. Wrestling magazines, newsletters, and message boards were busy with anticipation for Ken Shamrock's comeback in 2000 and in 2001. The ex-UFC fighter had returned to MMA in late 1999, but most figured he'd come crawling back to Vince for a payday or two at some stage. It didn't happen. No, Kenny Boy's final WWF match occurred on the 23rd of September 1999 episode of SmackDown. He lost a first blood bout to Chris Jericho on that show, then marched off to reignite his cage fighting career outside McMahon's remit. Shamrock would never return to the promotion, although he did show up again in 2002 as one of TNA's first major recruits. The last sighting WWE fans got of Ken was watching him spit up fake blood after a hockey stick beating at the hands of Jericho and Curtis Hughes. Company cameras cut from that into the next segment of SmackDown, and Shamrock was rarely mentioned again on TV. Number 2, XPac. Sean Waltman has become a darling, quite rightly, of the Nostalgia Pop crew during Hall of Fame ceremonies and Retro Raw episodes over the years. But his old XPac character was shelved over 20 years ago. In fact, Pac's final appearance as that gimmick was on the 8th of July 2002 edition of Monday Night Raw. NWO cohort Big Show helped a wounded Kevin Nash from the ring following their 10-man tag main event, and Waltman looked on alongside Shawn Michaels. Fans had been booing XPac out of buildings for almost 2 years by this point, and not in a good way. XPac heat, still hate that, was coined. WWF fans just wanted the character to go away, which is ever so slightly harsh given his skills and star power. Number 1, Chyna. That is the face of a woman who doesn't want to work with other women. Chyna viewed her WWF Women's title reign in 2001 as a real step down from working next to the guys in the IC title scene. If anything, the former DX member believed she should be elevated up the card rather than scrap with Ivory and Lita for prizes management just wasn't really asked about. According to Lita, the pair did get on behind the scenes, but Chyna's face said it all after their bout at Judgment Day. That May match would wind up up being the latter's last for the company. She tried to negotiate her contract for more money and then departed in November that year. This was a sorry end for someone who had been one of the most exciting and over acts during the rise of Attitude. Chyna was dumped in an overlooked division and then cast aside when she asked for something better. And that's our list. Did we miss any out? Let us know in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And subscribe to What Culture Wrestling wherever you get your podcasts from for daily wrestling podcasts. Plus, you can let us know your thoughts on Twitter at WhatCultureWWE, and you can find me on there at Adam Wilborn. Thanks for watching. I've been Adam from What Culture, and I'll see you soon.